You hear the waves crashing against wooden hulls in the dead of night. Somewhere out there, on those dark waters, a young sailor grips the railing of his ship, knowing he might never see the sunrise. His hands are shaking, not from the cold, from fear. He's been told that tomorrow, the sea will turn into hell. That fire will rain down from nowhere, consuming everything it touches. That men will scream as they burn alive, unable to escape because even water cannot save them. He writes a letter to his mother, telling her he loves her. He folds it carefully, tucks it inside his chest pocket, and whispers a prayer. By dawn, that letter will sink with him to the bottom of the sea, unread, forgotten. This is not just a battle. This is the moment when the Mediterranean held its breath, when an empire on the edge of collapse unleashed a weapon so terrifying that enemies would rather drown than face it. And you are about to witness what history tried to bury. Because this is not about glory. This is about survival, about desperation, about the moment when fire became water's master. If you skip this, you are turning your back on the men who burned so that their city could live. So stay, and remember them. The year is 674. The world is changing. Empires that once stood untouchable are crumbling. The sands of the Middle East are shifting beneath the feet of the old powers, and a new force is rising. The Caliphate. Young, hungry, relentless. They have already swept across Persia, shattered the Sassanids, and carved through the heart of Byzantine territory like a blade through silk. Egypt, Syria, North Africa. Gone. All gone. And now, they are looking at the jewel that remains. Constantinople, the queen of cities. The bridge between Europe and Asia. The heart of what is left of the Roman dream. If Constantinople falls, the entire Christian world falls with it. The Caliphate knows this. The Byzantines know this. And so, the greatest siege in medieval history begins. Not on land, but on water. The Byzantine Empire is dying. Everyone can see it. The vast territories that once stretched from Spain to the Euphrates are now reduced to a fraction of their former size. Emperor Constantine IV sits on a throne that feels more like a trap than a seat of power. His generals whisper in the corridors. His people are terrified. The enemy is at the gates. Not just any enemy. The Umayyad Caliphate, led by Caliph Muawiyah I, a man who has turned conquest into an art form. He does not just win battles. He erases civilizations. And now, his eyes are fixed on Constantinople. He has already sent raiding fleets before, testing the defenses, probing for weakness. But this time, it is different. This time, he is bringing everything. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of men, siege engines, supplies for years. He is not coming to raid. He is coming to end the Byzantines forever. The people of Constantinople watch the horizon with dread. Merchants stop their trade. Priests pray day and night. Mothers hold their children close, whispering promises they know they cannot keep. Because everyone remembers what happened to the cities that resisted the caliphate. They remember the stories, the blood, the slavery, the erasure. And now it is their turn. The Byzantine navy is smaller, outdated, outmatched. On paper, this is not a battle. This is an execution. But the Byzantines have something the enemy does not know about. Something that will turn the sea into a nightmare. Something that will make men beg for death rather than face it again. The Muslim fleet arrives like a storm. Hundreds of ships, their sails blotting out the sun. They form a blockade around the city, cutting off all supply routes. The strategy is simple. Starve them. Break them. Wait. The Umayyads are patient. They have time. They have resources. They have the wind at their backs and God on their side, or so they believe. The Byzantine fleet stays hidden, tucked behind the walls of the Golden Horn, the fortified harbor that protects the city. The Umayyad commanders laugh. They think the Byzantines are too afraid to fight. They think this will be easy. They are wrong. Constantine IV knows he cannot win a traditional naval battle. His ships are fewer. His men are exhausted. But he has one advantage. One secret that has been guarded for generations. A weapon so devastating that its formula is known only to a handful of men. A weapon that the Byzantines call liquid fire. The world will come to know it as Greek fire. And it is about to change everything. Greek fire is not just fire. It is something far worse. It is a mixture of chemicals, The exact formula lost to history, but likely involving petroleum, quicklime, sulfur, and naphtha. When ignited, it burns with a heat so intense that it melts metal. It sticks to everything it touches: skin, wood, water. Yes, water. Greek fire cannot be extinguished by water. In fact, water makes it burn hotter. Soldiers who jump into the sea to escape the flames find themselves burning alive beneath the waves, the fire clinging to them like a curse. It is sprayed from bronze tubes mounted on the prows of Byzantine ships, devices called siphons, which work like ancient flamethrowers. The Byzantines have kept this weapon secret for decades, using it sparingly, only in the most desperate moments. And now, this is that moment. The first attack comes at night. The Umayyad fleet is anchored in a crescent formation, confident, relaxed. They have no reason to fear. Their scouts have reported that the Byzantine ships are still hiding in the harbor. But then, the darkness comes alive. Silent shapes glide out from the Golden Horn. Byzantine dromons, fast war galleys designed for ramming and close combat. The Umayyad lookouts spot them too late. Before they can raise the alarm, the night explodes. Jets of fire erupt from the Byzantine ships, roaring streams of liquid flame that arc through the air like dragon's breath. The fire lands on the Umayyad vessels and spreads instantly, crawling across the decks, igniting sails, ropes, men. The screams begin. Men throw themselves into the water, but the fire follows them, burning on the surface, turning the sea into a field of flame. Others try to fight it with buckets of water, but the fire only grows stronger, feeding on the liquid, spreading faster. Panic spreads like the flames. Ships collide as captains try to flee. The crescent formation breaks apart. The Umayyad fleet, moments ago a symbol of unstoppable power, is now a floating graveyard. The Byzantine ships move with precision, cutting through the chaos, spraying fire left and right. The Muslim sailors have never seen anything like this. They have faced swords, arrows, siege towers. But this is supernatural. This is the wrath of God. The Byzantine crews work with cold efficiency. They do not celebrate. They do not cheer. They simply aim and burn. Aim and burn. Ship after ship goes up in flames. By dawn, the sea is covered in smoke and ash. Dozens of Umayyad vessels are destroyed. Hundreds of men are dead. The survivors limp back to their camps on the Asian shore, their confidence shattered. But the siege is not over. Muawiyah is not a man who gives up. He regroups. He sends more ships. He tries different tactics. For 5 years, the Umayyad fleet returns every spring and summer, launching assault after assault on Constantinople. And every time, the Byzantines meet them with fire. The psychological impact of Greek fire cannot be overstated. The Umayyad sailors grow terrified of the sea. They know that at any moment, the night might explode. That the water, their only escape, will betray them. The Byzantines use this fear. They launch raids at unpredictable times. They strike when the enemy is eating, sleeping, praying. They never give them rest. The Muslim commanders try everything to counter the fire. They experiment with wet hides draped over the ships. They try standing shields. They even try launching preemptive attacks to destroy the Byzantine fire ships before they get close. Nothing works. Greek fire is unstoppable, and the Byzantines know it. But it is not just the fire that wins the war. It is strategy. Constantine IV is not just defending. He is thinking ahead. He knows that the Umayyads are stretched thin. Their supply lines run all the way back to Damascus. Every ship they lose is a blow to their economy. Every sailor they lose is a man who cannot fight on another front. Constantine uses diplomacy. He sends envoys to the Bulgars, the nomadic tribes to the north, offering them gold and land if they attack the Umayyad camps from behind. The Bulgars agree. Suddenly, the Umayyads are fighting on 2 fronts. The Byzantines also bribe local governors in Asia Minor to withhold supplies from the Muslim fleet. Food runs short. Disease spreads. Morale collapses. The once proud Umayyad navy is reduced to a shadow of itself. In 678, after 5 years of relentless failure, Caliph Muawiyah makes a decision. He withdraws. He orders the fleet to return home. On the way back, a storm hits the remnants of the Umayyad armada, sinking dozens more ships. Of the thousands that set out to conquer Constantinople, only a fraction return. The Byzantines have won, not through superior numbers, not through stronger ships, but through terror, through innovation, through the weapon that turned the sea into hell. The consequences of this victory ripple across the medieval world. The Umayyad Caliphate, for the first time, is forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty with Byzantium. They agree to pay annual tribute. They return prisoners. They acknowledge that Constantinople is unconquerable. This moment marks the end of the Caliphate's unstoppable expansion. They will never again seriously threaten the Byzantine heartland. The balance of power in the Mediterranean shifts. Christian Europe, which was on the verge of collapse, is given a lifeline. The Byzantines use this breathing room to rebuild, to consolidate, to survive for another 7 centuries. Greek fire becomes a legend, a symbol of Byzantine ingenuity and desperation. Enemies fear it. Allies beg for the secret, but the Byzantines never share it. The formula is passed down through a secret guild of chemists, known only to the emperor and a handful of trusted men. Even today, historians debate the exact composition. We know it worked. We know it was devastating, but we do not know how to recreate it. The secret died with the empire, but the legacy lives on. Greek fire changes naval warfare forever. It proves that technology can overcome numbers, that innovation can defeat brute force, that a small, desperate empire can hold back a superpower if it is willing to fight smart and fight dirty. The Muslim world does not forget this lesson either. They begin investing in their own naval technologies, developing new tactics, new weapons. The arms race begins, and the Mediterranean becomes a chessboard where every move is calculated, every battle is a gamble, and every weapon is a secret. The sailors who fought in those flames are forgotten. Their names are lost. Their letters, like the one that young man wrote to his mother, are gone. But their sacrifice is not meaningless. They bought time. They bought survival. They bought a future for a city that would stand as a beacon of civilization for centuries to come. And they did it by mastering the one thing that should be impossible. They made fire burn on water. They turned the sea into a weapon. They faced an enemy that outnumbered them, outgunned them, and should have crushed them. And they won, not because they were stronger, but because they were smarter, because they were willing to do whatever it took, because they understood that sometimes survival requires you to become the monster your enemy fears. The siege of Constantinople is remembered as one of the turning points of history. If the city had fallen, the world would look different. Islam might have swept across Europe unchecked. The Renaissance might never have happened. The knowledge preserved in Byzantine libraries might have been lost forever. But it did not fall. It stood. And it stood because a handful of men, on a handful of ships, unleashed hell on the water. They proved that empires are not destroyed by size alone. That desperation breeds innovation. That the underdog can win if they are clever enough, brave enough, and ruthless enough. The flames that consumed the Umayyad fleet that night were not just fire. They were defiance. They were survival. They were the last roar of an empire that refused to die quietly. And as the smoke cleared and the sun rose over the Golden Horn, the people of Constantinople looked out at the sea, now calm, now silent, and they knew. They had witnessed something that would never be repeated. A moment when fire and water became one, when the impossible became real, when the fate of the world hung on the edge of a flame. The young sailor who wrote that letter never made it home. His body was never found. His mother waited by the window for years, hoping. But he did not die for nothing. He died so that the fire could burn, so that the enemy would break, so that Constantinople could live another day. His name is lost, but his sacrifice is eternal. And that is the story history tried to bury. The story of how the Byzantines turned the sea into fire, and in doing so, saved the world.